My clock says 7 o'clock. I'm not even going to use the gavel. You all quieted right down. No sense. So welcome to our March meeting on a beautiful evening. I might remind you it is basketball season. Why else would we live in this climate if it weren't for basketball? Mr. Miller, is that right? Okay. Well, we'll see about that, but Mr. Miller knows the predicament I'm in with IU grads and soon to be 3 grandsons at Purdue. It makes it kind of tough in our house. We'll start with our Pledge of Allegiance, and then I believe Pastor Jerome Sack is here from Radiant Life Christian Church to lead us in an invocation. Would you all please rise? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pastor?
Let us pray. Father God, we ask that you bless this city council meeting. We thank you for leaders that you have raised up who would serve the city and the citizens with the best interest at heart. God, we thank you for those in the past who you granted wisdom and foresight to, who would lay the foundation of the city that we are privileged to call home. We pray that you would do the same for this council, that there would be insight on how to steward the resources of the city, that there would be discernment as they make decisions among competing priorities. Father, we pray that we would echo the psalmist when he said, "Give us clean hands and give us pure hearts." And it's this prayer I offer in the name of my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. President Johns, would you care to run this meeting?
Yes, I will, Mayor Cook. Okay. Cindy Gossard, would you please note the presence of a quorum?
Joe Edwards?
Yes.
Scott Willis?
Here?
Oh. Cindy Spalgeric?
Here.
Jake Gilbert?
Here.
Mike Johns?
Here.
Scott Fry?
Here.
We do have a quorum.
Thank you. First item on this evening's agenda is the approval of the minutes from the February 27th, 2023 meeting. Councilors, do you have any additions, subtractions to those minutes? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Spalgeric, seconded by Councilor Fry, or Edwards. Cindy, would you call the roll, please?
Jake Gilbert?
Yes.
Mike Johns?
Yes.
Scott Fry?
Yes.
Joe Edwards?
Yes.
Scott Willis?
Yes.
Cindy Spalgeric?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
The next item on our agenda is the approval of the claims docket for today, March 13th, 2023. Councilors, do you have any questions regarding the claims docket? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve that docket?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Willis, seconded by Councilor Edwards. Cindy, would you call the roll, please?
Jake Gilbert?
Yes.
Mike Johns?
Yes.
Scott Willis?
Yes.
Cindy Spalgeric?
Yes.
Scott Fry?
Yes.
Joe Edwards?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Okay, we're fortunate tonight that we have several items of miscellaneous business and special recognition. So our first item then would be a proclamation by Mayor Cook, and he will be presenting to Joanne Tedesco the proclamation just declaring March as Disability Month.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Johns. Joanne, would you and your gang, as you call them, please come forward. Yes. All of you.
All of you. Yes, this is a team. It's a community.
Yes, it
How are you?
I'm great. How are you? Wow. Please, come on now. Come on now. Fort Lauderdale. Yeah. Good. Well, Joanne, when did we start this here in Westfield? Has it been a year ago?
I think we were here doing the same thing last year.
Last year?
Yeah. Actually, it was Valentine's Day. I'm sure everyone
That's,
remember that.
we remember the cookies.
Remember the cookies?
You have been very busy in this life.
We have been busy.
Yes, we're very proud of what all you've done. May we offer a proclamation in honor of you and our people. May we? So, little history. It says that in 1990, the federal government enacted the American with Disabilities Act, which prohibits discrimination against any disabled Americans. Following that, in the month of March 2023 has been designated as Disability Awareness Month to celebrate and recognize people with disabilities throughout the state of Indiana. Family members, friends, and members of this community can play a very important role in enhancing the lives of those with disabilities, and I think we're seeing a lot of that result right now. Disability is a natural part of human experience in no way diminishes the right of individuals with disabilities to live independently, enjoy self-determination, make choices, contribute to our society, and take part in the economic, political, social, cultural, and educational mainstream of American society. The goals of this city and the state properly include providing individuals with disabilities the opportunities and support to make informed choices and decisions, live in homes and communities where such individuals can exercise their full rights as citizens, pursuing meaningful and productive lives, contribute to their families, to their community, to the state of Indiana, and to our nation. Therefore, I, J. Andrew Cook, as the mayor of the city of Westfield, Indiana, do declare and proclaim March 2023 as Disability Awareness Month here in Westfield. Joanne, this is for you. Do you have something else you'd like to add?
I do. Thank you for recognizing a very precious community of people here in Westfield, Mayor Cook. We do have an ambassador here with us this evening who just exudes kindness and inclusion, and we would like to recognize him as our ambassador for March Disability Awareness Month. Mr. Asher Galen is from Westfield Middle School, and he would like to share his
At first, I thought I was getting myself into a school office job, but what I didn't know was peer facilitation was going to change my life. Hi, my name is Asher Galan. I'm a student at the Westfield Middle School, and I'm in the 8th grade. I've always been a good student, but sometimes things come harder for me because I struggle with ADHD, depression, and anxiety. Sometimes I struggle with my emotions and staying focused. This sometimes makes school a little more difficult for me. My teacher and friends don't always understand this. The first time I walked into peer facilitation, I was nervous, because it was not what I expected. However, I almost instantly felt calmer and an instant joy. Once I met a few kids in the group, as I spent more time in the room, I began to figure out that this was going to be my safe place. In this classroom, I learned that having a class period with no judgment and lots of silly moments would impact my day and help me get through it so much. I love spending time with my newest friends, and I wish more people realize that kids with disabilities can be friends forever too. More people should strive to learn or teach others about disabilities. I've recently been contributing by working with the Joseph Maley Foundation to teach kids in grades K through 4 about disabilities through puppets. Hopefully they take their lessons from the puppet and put it in real life so maybe they can feel the joy I do.
logo on it, and colors and all that, okay? And this recognizes you. And what it says, I gotta read it. Spread a little kindness and acceptance everywhere you go. Let that little kindness and love from your heart gently flow. Reach out with kindness and understanding to all those in need. Smile at others with kindness. Spread the kindness and inclusion seed. You do that? I think you do.
Well done, Asher. Get done. Get one.
Okay, fantastic. Our next item on the agenda would be a presentation from Joanne Tedesco regarding an update on the Westfield Mayor's Council on Disabilities.
Good evening, council members, ladies, gentlemen, Mayor Cook. It's a pleasure to be here again with you. We haven't provided you with an update since June of last year, so we really wanted to share some goodness and really wanted to kick off the celebration of March by having our special friends here. And I just want to dote a little bit more on Asher really quickly because he's a kind, gentle soul that Madeline kept coming home to tell me about. And I had the pleasure of finally meeting Asher and his parents. And, and what he didn't tell you is that he signed up for peer facilitation in our middle school, a great program there, and thought, is this okay, Asher? He thought, and correct me if I'm wrong, okay? What he said is that he thought he was going to the office to do a job. And they sent him to Mrs. O'Neill's life skills program, or into her room, where Madeline was and her friends. And he said, when I opened the door and saw all those students, I knew I was just at home. I was accepted. I felt joy. And we just couldn't let the opportunity go without not celebrating him during Disability Awareness Month. Asher has since found maybe special education as his route as he heads into the high school. And so I think the unique thing here is that sometimes when you're with a group of people that you might not have been with before, you never know what the beauty is going to be and the joy. And I think his mental health challenges have also kind of decreased because he's in a place where he feels accepted. So just wanted to start with that because I think that's a nice, kind message for us all any day outside of March. But anyway, thank you for letting us give you an update. We're really excited to show you what we've been up to since June of last year. There we are, looking familiar. Chris, did you get one like that? So established obviously last year. We just wanted to give those who might not know a quick down and dirty overview of our mission. It's pretty simple. We want to make a positive impact in the lives of, you'll see this, PWD. We're just full of acronyms in the disability world, people with disabilities in Westfield. And how do we do that? We have our 6, what we call mission teams, and those include inclusion, life cycle planning, accessibility, housing, employment, and transportation. So we have our work cut out for us, but we want to show you what we've been up to since then. We kicked off with an event down in Grand Junction Plaza in July. Thank goodness it wasn't too terribly hot. We'll probably reconsider where we're going to be for this year's, but it was a good turnout. We were invited by the Westfield Chamber to be part of the party on the patio, and it was a real treat to see the community and start getting out there to get recognized and chat with our community. That was in September. We were pretty busy in September. We had a call for volunteers get together as well here. We had the Arc of Indiana, a wonderful woman, Carly Poulter, came and talked about planning for the future, which is really important for parents, not only parents, but individuals with disabilities on how do I get to my good life? And it's a really great roadmap and toolkit that anyone could use. It doesn't matter if you have a disability or not. Hey, maybe you're looking for a job. It was a really good toolbox of how do I get where I want to go. And October really was kind of our largest event. Our attendance has been around 25, 20, with some of the smaller call for volunteers here, maybe a little bit less, but we always, if I get one person, I'm really good, because that person's gonna spread the goodness, is how we feel. But October, we had about 25 people. It was our From Tragedy to Hope event at Grand Park, celebrating disability employment awareness. And I'll just give you a couple of highlights there. Here are some of our speakers. We had a gentleman named Gordon Holmes. There's Carly down at the bottom. And that is me. Thank you, Madeline. And we had an amazing lieutenant who was part of that disability employment event, which was a huge success. A firefighter who became an amputee. So you never know if you're going to be part of our community of people, whether you're born with a disability or you become disabled. So it was amazing, to say the least. And there he is, quite a man. He always wanted to be a firefighter. He didn't win when the semi and his motorcycle came together, and had to experience where to find basically a new limb, which was a new place for him to be in life. We also had what's called vocational rehabilitation. So we wanted to make sure those people there understood, if you're an individual or a parent of a child with a disability, that there are jobs for everybody. And so we had the state program come and talk about all the services that they provide and how the families could get connected. We also had Best Buddies. They have actually a job placement program as well, which a lot of us didn't know about. And of course, we had Stars, the ambassador of Best Buddies, talk about how much he loves his job at Topgolf. We also had our school system involved with the Shamrock Project with our transition program. And again, we have a great case example of a student who actually works at Portillo's. And then we finally had one employee, but they're actually not in Westfield, but this is Olivia Graham and her dad, who runs 4-Day Ray. So we had him come and talk about how it is to employ people with disabilities. And we're really working to educate our community so that we can say, here's an employer within our own backyard. So next up, what else have we been doing? If you're not aware, our high school is awesome, and they invited us to be part of the Inclusion Revolution. If you haven't heard about it, I hadn't. It's been going on for about 4 years. Since 2019, things kind of halted since 2019. This was their event since then. But it basically is where the high school students are educating the freshmen about inclusion. What does it mean? And they showcased Best Buddies, how you can get connected, because peers and we all need just to be together. So I thought that was a great program to catch the freshmen at that before they got started. What does it mean? What's the impact? What does inclusion actually mean? Unified sports were obviously discussed, and then we had some really great sample speakers to come and talk about what Best Buddies means. But the best, you guys, and I couldn't get the video in here, was at the end they did Just Dance, and it was beautiful. This whole auditorium, the Best Buddies came up, their buddies, and everyone in the auditorium was just doing the same dance. I don't know if you know what Just Dance is, but you basically watch it and try to mimic it. I won't do it right now, thank goodness, but I think you get the picture, but I think it would have, I don't know, grabbed your heart. It was just so joyful, but anyway, look on our Facebook page and you'll see it. We also, so that was Friday, this was on Tuesday, the 7th. We were able to get some amazing ladies come and talk about post-secondary opportunities for people with disabilities. Because we have high school, but then what's next? Job route or post-secondary? And so we started off with our hometown hero in Noblesville, same as you. So the ladies came and talked about their program there, which it was really designed from moms because they couldn't find what they needed. So they just built it, right? We also had Megan Stevenson is the director at a place called Erskine Green. Technical or Training Center Institute, sorry, EGTI. It's a unique setup. I don't know if you've heard about it, but check it out. It's very interesting how it's set up. It's down in Muncie, and it actually is housed, so students go about 20 at a time, 10 to 13 weeks, and they live in the Courtyard Marriott. And they have different programming for like food service, hospitality, restaurant. It's pretty amazing. They utilize the Hospital Ball Memorial for supply-demand kinds of opportunities for kids that want to go that route. So it's a really neat opportunity that a lot of us have heard probably in our community, but it's nice to share because it's not too far away for our individuals to go. And then Ball State came too. So it was really nice for the chirp was going on, and people were talking about how individualized it is there and how they have accommodations and modifications for any student that wants a college experience. And then next, what have we been up to? Where are you? You two back there. Come here. These ladies are, or we can point to you if you don't want to come up. I think it's really important to highlight, we have those mission teams, and we're still trying to fill them, but we have some that are really accelerating, and it's because of these two ladies, Leslie Holloman and Bridget Lucan. And actually, that's Bridget's son, Elliot Davis. Do you guys want to explain it? Do you want me? Are you good? No? Okay, sorry. I totally put them on the spot, and they're going to kill me after this. But anyway, so they came up with the concept during March Disability Awareness. They lead the Workforce Development Mission Team, and they came up with Workforce Wednesdays. Well, what is that? Highlighting our amazing employees from Westfield, wherever they may work, and using social media platforms to get the word out. So this is Bridget's lovely son, and he has an amazing job. And again, it's just important to highlight. And that just creates awareness, and we start to build our road on educating about workforce and employment for all. And this past Wednesday was Olivia Graham. So she works at 4 Day Ray as an employee, and she also is a Therapy Redefined volunteer in Carmel. So thank you, ladies, for that. Amazing. They're really pushing hard to educate employers. Because our population of people are very loyal, and there are great revenue numbers and data to prove it as well. So we just have to get over a couple humps of what is an accommodation and what is a modification. And again, drum roll for these two, is they came up with a concept. How are we going to really move this workforce development ball? Well, we need to get our employers who are currently employing people with disabilities recognition. So as you'll see on the left there, that is the decal that is in process, that is being designed, that will be in the windows of those who do employ people with disabilities currently. For those, all the rest that want to jump on board, we're gonna train them so that we can be proud of our workforce and all people having a job. So that's an ongoing program right now. Don't kill me later. Okay, you can sit down. Sorry, I just kind of do that ad hoc thing. And then next, I didn't give a transition there, Yolanda. And when we talk about, so that was our workforce development mission team. You can kind of see what we're working on. We're working with the Chamber of Commerce. We just met our liaison, Mr. Andrew Montgomery. So he's going to help us create breakfast opportunities with business leaders to keep that momentum going. And then I was supposed to transition about transportation, and this is Yolanda, and she is from Janus, and we are so proud to work together. She does so many things, and it was an opportunity for us to lock arms on transportation. So what we are going to try and do, and she actually just drove the bus over there, is to do, she is a gal, let me tell you. We are going to have a pilot program with Hamilton County Express out of Westfield. And thank you, Jeremy Lawler, too, and everyone else that I haven't mentioned, for having a bus sit actually off of 32 in the public safety parking lot. And Yolanda can tell you more about why, but we're looking to be an effective service for all people with disabilities in Westfield. And we've heard good and bad, and we know that there's others that probably don't even know that transportation is maybe available here because they're based out of Noblesville. So
Yeah, so if you're aware, Janus has been a part of Hamilton County since 1979, and we serve Westfield proud. And I need to get those decals because we certainly have successful employment outcomes here in Westfield. But one of the main pieces is having an individual who has different intellectual or developmental abilities to be able to access community services as well as be able to access their place of employment. So the most common rider for Hamilton County Express is a person going to their job. And approximately 3/4 of the individuals that utilize Hamilton County Express public transit identify as having some kind of disability. So we believe that this is important, and to be able to have a bus right here in Westfield can be able to get that bus straight into operations, serving the community quicker rather than driving from Noblesville over to Westfield. So just some efficiencies there, as well as just being able to get folks where they need to be when they need to be there, not only during the month of March, but then all of the other months as well, to be able to continue that sustainability.
Thank you, Yolanda. And we're just going to close off still with transportation, that we're excited. So while we're doing the pilot program, we still need to gather data because we don't have the census is a little generic in the terms of what we need. So tonight we are launching our transportation study with a quick, easy, just get your phones out and you can do it. We're kicking that off tonight so that we can understand better what the needs are. Have you experienced good, bad? Maybe you don't know about the service that's available. And if you haven't, check it out. It's on 32 and it's going to make a spectacle. So hopefully that'll draw some awareness as well. So these will be in the back. The survey will end on March 27th. So tell your friends, we could use as much data as we could get. So that is a wrap up of what we've been up to. And thank you for your time. I appreciate it. It's good to see you again.
Thank you, Joanne. Counselors, any comments? Joanne, I would just like to compliment you on the progress that you have made in the last, 7, 8 months. It is truly remarkable. And I can't tell you how excited I am just to be part of this program. So thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, our next presentation this evening will be a data presentation from Caleb Ernest from our Community Development Department. And Caleb's presentation is going to deal with our land use in Westfield and the Westfield, Washington residential and non-residential property inventory. So Caleb, it's yours.
Thank you. So just as a quick recap here, we've presented on 3 different presentations. One of the first presentation was over our residential inventory. The second and third presentations were over our non-residential inventory. So moving forward, this presentation is going to cover all of Westfield, Washington Township, its acreage and how it's broken down. We're going to cover all of Westfield, Washington Township's gross assessed value and all of Westfield, Washington Township's tax revenue. So as a reminder, here is Westfield, Washington Township. The boundaries north 216th Street, south 146th Street, to the east Gray Road, and to the west Hamilton Boone County Line Road. It's approximately 56 square miles, which is 35,826 acres. So the 35,826 acres is going to be broken down into the categories of residential, non-residential, right-of-way, agricultural land, and parkland. So there is some new terminology that'll be shown in the presentation: gross assessed value, which you'll see abbreviated as GAV, and tax revenue, which will be abbreviated as TR. The gross assessed value is essentially property value prior to any type of deduction, and tax revenue is revenue that is generated from any taxes. At the end of the first residential presentation, this was the final slide of that presentation. As a quick reminder, the takeaways is of all single-family and multifamily units, just over 22,000 units exist today. They've already been built. And just over 9,600 units do not exist today, but they are approved to be built. At the end of the second presentation that was covered, which is the non-residential stock, there was about 4,800 acres of non-residential land that was divided out into platted lots, which is the 2,800 acres here, platted blocks, which are essentially placeholders for future development, and then not platted area. Further, the third presentation covered 7 land use categories that only focused on the 2,800 acres of the total 4,800 acres of non-residential land. And this table shows the makeup of those 7 land use categories. So moving forward is when we break down into the 5 categories that cover all of Westfield, Washington Township. Again, in total, there's 35,826 acres in the entire township. That includes both the township properties as well as the city properties. 14% of all land is non-residential. This is a further breakdown of those land use categories. 39% of all land is residential. 38% of all land is agricultural. 8% of land is dedicated right-of-way. And 1% of land is dedicated to the parks. Now what this graph is showing us is that on the left-hand side, the solid colors is showing the total acreages within each of those categories. The total acreages comprise of both township and city acreages. The bars on the right-hand side, the grayed out columns, show the acreages that are just within city limits, so just city acreages. As an example, for the total acreage, we have 35,826 acres, but just within the city is just under 21,000 acres. Example within the charts, if we look at non-residential, total non-residential land in the entire township is 44,864 acres, but just within the city limits is 3,940. And so on for residential and agricultural land. And we transition into gross assessed value. The total gross assessed value for all of Westfield, Washington Township is just over $8 billion. And within the city limits itself is just shy of $7.8 billion. For non-residential land, we have 872 million, and just within the city is 842 million. Residential and agricultural are shown. This pie chart shows the same thing, just organized in a different way. Essentially what this is showing is that all of the solid colors in the pie chart is just the acreage within the city limits. And the stripe colors is showing only the acreages in the township properties. So combining the totals of the solid and stripe creates the total for each category. This is just a side-by-side comparison, again showing the difference and the correlation between township acreage and city acreage. So moving forward, the non-residential component, the 4,864 acres, again in the second presentation, all of the lots, the blocks, and not platted acreages of non-residential land filter into that 4,800 number. And similarly with the residential land, filters into this 13,000 number. This is the final slide of the first presentation. However, the first presentation, we reported purely on units of residential, so we had to convert those units into acres. So all the 4 same categories of residential are still present. All that has changed is just that the acres was converted. So moving forward into how gross assessed value is broken down. So non-residential land accounts for 11% of the entire township's GAV. That's further broken down into those 7 land use categories, blocks, and what is not platted. Residential accounts for 88% of the total GAV for Westfield Washington Township. Single family and multifamily. And lastly, agricultural accounts for about 1% of the total GAV. So again, total GAV just over $8 billion. Now that we know the acreages and the GAV, we can create our GAV per acre rate. So this is simply taking the GAV divided by the acreage. So we get a total GAV rate per acre of about $250,000. For non-residential land, $179,000 per acre. Residential is just over $500,000 per acre. And agricultural land is just over $6,000 per acre. Moving forward, it was at the council's request that of the 7 different land use categories, we show the direct affiliation of what revenues are created. So from the 7 land use categories, we show the GAV of each of those categories. So the total non-residential land use GAV is $854 million. 38% of this is comprised of retail, 12% is office, 1% educational institutions, 6% religious institutions, 17% industrial, 24% falls in that other or that miscellaneous category, and 2% falls in the vacant category. This is a side-by-side comparison. The land use acreages are on the left, and the land uses for GAV are on the right. Moving forward, as revenues are created by property tax, total non-residential land uses, tax revenue created is $16 million from those 7 land use categories. 30% is attributed to the retail, 12% attributed to office, 0% to educational institutions, technically less than 1% to religious institutions, 21% to the industrial, 34% to that other or miscellaneous category, and 3% falls in the vacant category. And how this compares to the total Westfield Washington Township. Total tax revenue for all Westfield Washington Township is over $93 million. 18% is from non-residential land. 81% is from residential land. And about 1% is from agricultural land. And technically less than 1% was generated from the parks. So this tax revenue was retrieved from the county's 2021 pay 2022 data. So now that we know the tax revenue as well, in relation to the acreages, we can find tax revenue per acre, the rate. So the total rate, tax revenue divided by acreage, is $2,600. For non-residential land, $3,400 per acre. Residential land, $5,400 per acre. Agricultural land, $96 per acre. Again, this is a comparison. The 7 land use categories by acres on the top left, by GAV top right, and tax revenue bottom middle. So how do we compare to our neighboring townships? Data was available to compare to Noblesville, Carmel, and Fishers. So moving forward, there's a lot of data that's going to be shown on the screens. Rather than stating all of it, I'm going to leave it up on the screen and just clarify which graphs relate to which jurisdictions. So we're covering acreage first. Westfield's acreage is top left, Noblesville is top right, Carmel is bottom left, and Fishers is bottom right. Again, this is the total acreage of the entire townships, and the total acres can be found at the bottom left of each of the charts. Moving forward, this is just a breakdown of each of the categories by acres. Total township acres, top left. Non-residential acres, top right. Residential acres, bottom left. And agricultural acres, bottom right. Right-of-way acres, top left. Park acres, top right. Retail acres, bottom left. And office acres, bottom right. Educational institutional acres, top left. Religious institutional acres, top right. The other miscellaneous acres, bottom left. And vacant acres, bottom right.
Caleb, exactly what does vacant acre consist of?
Vacant properties without any buildings on it, vacant buildings without a tenant on it. Those are primarily what make up that category. Single family, residential home acres, top left, multifamily acres, top right. Moving forward, similarly, this shows the relationship between city acres and township acres. Again, the solid color demonstrates what is only within the city, and striped shows what is only within township. Gross assessed value, how we compare. Top left is total township GAV, total or non-residential GAV, top right, residential GAV, bottom left, and agricultural GAV, bottom right. Retail GAV, top left, office GAV, top right, educational institutional GAV, bottom left, religious institutional, bottom right. Industrial GAV, top left, other, top right, and vacant, bottom left. Single-family GAV, top left, multifamily GAV, top right. Moving forward, this is the GAV per acre rate, the total rate, top left, non-residential rate, top right, residential rate, bottom left, and agricultural rate, bottom right. Lastly, we'll look at non-residential property tax revenue. This is comparing the 7 land use categories: Westfield, top left; Noblesville, top right; Carmel, bottom left; Fishers, bottom right. Again, the total property tax revenues generated are in the bottom left of each chart. Comparing each category side by side: total tax revenue, top left; non-residential tax revenue, top right; residential, bottom left; agricultural, bottom right. Retail tax revenue, top left; office tax revenue, top right; educational institutional, technically, bottom left; and religious institutional, bottom right. Industrial tax revenue, top left; the other category, top right; and vacant, bottom left. And single-family tax revenue, top left; multifamily tax revenue, top right. Property tax revenue per acre, the total rate, top left; non-residential rate, top right; residential rate, bottom left; agricultural rate, bottom right. And lastly, as a quick recap on how the taxes are broken down, how they are distributed. Again, $93 million of tax revenue is generated. 56% of tax revenue is distributed to the schools. 30% of tax revenue is distributed to the city. 11% of tax revenue is distributed to the county. 2% of tax revenue is distributed to the library. And less than 1% of tax revenue is distributed to the township. And finally, less than 1% of tax revenue is distributed to solid waste. Moving forward, I will turn it over to John Rogers to go over a 5-year, year-by-year outlook.
Thank you, Caleb. Before you, hi, John Rogers, City of Westfield. Before you, you have the current 5-year projection, growth, and from the sustainability. Greg will be here on the meeting on the 10th to go over this sustainability in full. This is just a recap. What you have are the property tax revenues over the next 5 years. Included is the new fire station, road work, and the limits of the 5% growth quotient. So everything Caleb presented, the growth that's in process, is shown in these numbers.
John, we have no projected revenue for Grand Park Outdoor beginning in '25. Is that as we awaited ownership? Was that the purpose of that not being in the sustainability plan?
That is correct.
So our general fund is decreasing over the next 5 years,
That's correct.
quite significantly, actually.
We feel pretty strongly, we do feel strongly we have enough cash to stay on this path, yes.
So John, you said that you'll have another presentation for us at the next meeting.
April 10th is when Greg plans on being here to present the sustainability. That is correct.
Counselors, any other questions?
When will we get that? I'd like to have that in advance to be able to review it before the presentation.
We could probably have it at least a week before. I'll check with Greg and I'll get back with you.
Thank you.
I'd just like to thank Caleb and everybody that was involved with putting all this information together. Needless to say, I mean, it's very obvious there was a lot of work that was poured into that. I appreciate that very much. When you sent it, I think you sent it last week, if I'm not mistaken. I kind of tried to absorb what I could from it. I appreciate you kind of going through it here. Want to see if you're going to be available. There's a couple questions that I'm going to have that I just want to dive a little bit more deeply into to make sure that I understand what we're looking at. So if you're available in the next couple, week or so, I'd like to connect with you and see if we can, you can kind of clear up some gray areas for me. Appreciate that very much.
Yep, thank you. Just reach out and we'll schedule something.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Caleb. Great job. Excellent. The next item then on our agenda tonight is the council's schedule to make an appointment to the Civilian Fire Merit Board. The chair is going to recognize Councilor Gilbert to address that.
As a council, we are recommending that we reappoint Dr. Eric Lohi to the Westfield Fire Merit Board. Dr. Lohi is a pastor, lead pastor at Crossroads Church. He does a lot in our community, very active. Again, this would be a reappointment. He has served in this position. His term just came up and we would like to reappoint him. This was a note from Eric today. He said, "Good morning, Jake. I believe that tonight is the night when I will be voted on for reappointment. To the Westfield Fire Merit Board, I eagerly look forward to continuing to serve our first responders who so sacrificially serve us. I will not be able to attend the city council meeting tonight as I have to meet with one of our elders about a pressing church matter. So sorry to miss the meeting, but praying that it will be a good meeting, Eric. So I am making a motion that we appoint Eric Lohe for the council position on the Westfield Fire Merit Board.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Second. Motion made by Counselor Gilbert, seconded by Counselor Speljerek. Cindy, would you call the roll, please?
Joe Edwards,
Yes.
Scott Willis,
Yes.
Cindy Spalgeric,
Yes.
Jake Gilbert,
Yes.
Mike Johns,
Yes.
Scott Fry.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
The next item on our agenda tonight is the council approval of the mayor's selection of members to the Preservation Commission. Teresa Skelton, Melody Jones, Randy Zentz, Diana Payton, and Kevin Mueller. Do I have a motion?
I would like to table this item, please.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Cindy, would you call the roll, please?
Wait. Do we get to make any comments on this, or?
A motion's been made. We can make comments, I guess.
Make comments after the second, yes.
Yeah, yes, you can. Yeah, motion's been made by Counselor Spaljerek and seconded by Counselor Fry.
What are we tabling it for? I'm just confused here. Are we,
Several counselors feel that this needs to be looked at further.
okay. Mandy, can you explain to us how this is going to work? If the mayor's appointments don't change and the council says no, they just not staff the board, or I'm just,
The board can't be constituted without the mayor's appointment, which is the first step, and then council approval. So if the mayor keeps appointing the same individuals, if they continue wanting to serve despite that, and then the council doesn't approve, that's right, the board is not constituted.
and how does that impact the program that we approved as council?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that last part?
How does that impact the program that we approved as council? I mean, I'm assuming it's just, nothing happens, it just sits dormant, is that correct? Or?
Correct. Yeah, the Historic Preservation Commission won't be constituted, so it won't be able to take any action that it would otherwise be able to take or be required to take.
Okay.
It would be dormant until and unless a board is constituted.
All right, thank you. That's all questions I have.
Sure.
Any other questions? Cindy, would you call the roll, please?
Joe Edwards,
Yes.
Scott Willis,
No.
Cindy Spalgeric,
Yes.
Jake Gilbert,
No.
Mike Johns,
Yes.
Scott Fry.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-2.
Moving on then to old business. Our first item tonight of old business is ordinance 22-61, Grand Park Village PUD Amendment 5. This had a council introduction on December 12th last year. We had a public hearing at the APC on January 17th, followed by an APC recommendation on February 6th. It was a favorable recommendation, a 6-1 vote. And it's up for council consideration this evening. Now we've got John DeWiche was here, Kevin. Lauren's going to introduce. Okay.
Hello, counselors. I'm standing in for Dane this evening. For the record, Lauren Gillingham with the Community Development Department. The item before you this evening is a proposed Fifth Amendment to the Grand Park Village PUD, specific to a 7-acre piece of real estate located south of 186th Street, east of Kinsey Avenue, and north of the approved Beezer Villa development harbors at Grand Park Village, as shown on the screen. Though there are some minor modifications to certain development standards, the primary reason for this amendment is to permit townhome dwellings on the property. The Grand Park Village PUD permitted multifamily uses. The Grand Park PUD's permitted family uses default to the MF2 standards in the UDO, and townhome dwellings are only permitted in MF1 districts. This item has been properly noticed and advertised. The department has received 0 public comments. Petitioner held a public meeting for this project on January 12th, for which there was 1 public attendee. After the hearing, if the board is inclined, it may vote to waive the requirement for a workshop meeting, and instead the petitioner will create the necessary revisions from your comments this evening in return for a recommendation, most likely the first APC meeting in February. Oh, that's incorrect. The first APC meeting in April. John Davishewitz is here if you have any questions.
For the record, John Davishewitz was just recognizing that Lauren was standing in for Dane. The statements that were made, the petition was in front of the Planning Commission in February, received a recommendation, as Mr. Johns, you identified. Just a brief summary, there's 77 dwellings proposed in the number of townhomes, and that replaces 77 multifamily dwellings that would otherwise be permitted by right today on the real estate. That was the request that was made by the applicant. There were additional items that you'll see in the ordinance relating to amenities and building architecture that were layered in to give really body to the request, the design of the townhomes, other things that the Planning Commission had considered. In addition to that, and finally, there were a set of commitments the Planning Commission wanted the petitioner to agree to prohibit short-term residential rentals, and the petitioner agreed to that, so that's why you see the commitment that's before you this evening for consideration along with the zoning request. Be glad to address any other questions that the Commission might have before adoption consideration.
Thank you, John. Councilor, questions?
Sorry, John, I'm gonna have a couple. So you're saying, so it was zoned, the original plan was apartments, and you're saying it's been switched to townhomes. That's what you basically just said, right?
On the 7 acres.
Okay, so a couple questions. I still have confusion over the whole airport situation. Is this near that?
We're about a half-mile removed to the east. There's the parcel that the council considered, I think at your last meeting or a meeting ago. It may not be back in front of the council. I don't know if you have a pointer I can use. Or so we're.
You just feel like it's far enough east that it's not going to be in the way of the airport.
Right. This is Kenzie. This is another parcel. The airport's another quarter-mile.
Spring Mill, right?
Over here,
Okay,
yeah.
so, because we just got another email yesterday with some, a warning about, I guess, another site being close to an airport that I think is even farther away than this. And so maybe I just don't understand the airport dynamics quite as much. But whereas I thought this was plenty to the east until I got that email yesterday, which was backed by the FAA. So I don't know if we all got that same email. So I don't know if there's any other comments on that. But that kind of reintroduced that whole thing, so.
I think the height of the buildings was one concern from a north approach. And I don't, since they're townhomes, I don't think that's that much of a problem. One of the primary problems with a small airport and small planes are birds. And you get all these waterways, all these, I don't know what you call them, fill-in pits or retention ponds. And you get a lot of birds. And you get birds heavy enough to take a plane out of the air. So, but I don't know that that's the case with this. The owner of the airport never mentioned that to me, so I would say that probably didn't concern him either. But the other one, I don't know about.
Okay, well, I just thought it was worth at least bringing up. I don't know if there's anyone else who, APC perspective.
From an APC perspective, I think we had discussed it, and there didn't seem to be any issue with respect to the airport per se. This land had been initially approved for apartments right now, and the APC felt that it was a better usage this specific project was, and gave it a favorable recommendation.
Okay, the other, so the short-term rental commitment, I assume, is to prevent like Airbnb type of usage.
Yeah, these townhomes will be for sale, fee simple dwellings sold to individual buyers. On top of that, the fact that they would be individually owned, the Planning Commission asked for us to restrict and make it a minimum 6-month rental. And then it also, on top of the minimum 6-month rental, prohibits any individual for renting part of their dwelling for that purpose. So there's a double-edged sword there. One, you can't rent it for less than 6 months, and two, an individual owner can't rent some portion of the dwelling, like would be the case perhaps for a Airbnb.
Yeah, ironically, I really love that provision for any, well, for a lot of places, but also we know, hear a lot about people going to hotels in other cities because we can't house them and we don't maybe have quite the demand for hotels aside from Grand Park events. But it's basically, I feel like if there was any place in the city where I would be okay with Airbnb, it'd be right there next to Grand Park. But we can't really do anything about that with our existing. So I was just curious if that was the intent of the short-term rental commitment, which again, I think is great. I wish we had it in some of our other areas. I get a lot of complaints in my district about Airbnb, a lot. But I was just curious. This would be a place where I wouldn't mind it as much, better than say some of these existing neighborhoods. So I figured that was the purpose. I just wanted to ask explicitly. So thank you.
Rob.
Any other comments? Questions? All right. And can I have a motion, please, to approve ordinance 22-61, Grand Park Village PUD Amendment 5?
So moved.
Do you have a second?
I'll second it.
Motion made by Counselor Edwards, seconded by Counselor Willis. Cindy, would you call the roll, please?
Scott Fry,
Yes.
Mike Johns,
Yes.
Jake Gilbert,
Yes.
Cindy Spalgeri,
Yes.
Scott Willis,
Yes.
Joe Edwards.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you. Our next item under old business, ordinance 22-62, Westfield, Washington PUD. This item had a council introduction on December 12th, APC hearing on February 6th, followed by an APC recommendation on March 6th, unanimous recommendation. It is up for adoption consideration this evening. I believe Lauren's going to introduce it.
Thank you, Mr. President. For the record, Lauren Gillingham with the Community Development Department. The item presented before you this evening is the Westfield, Washington Schools PUD. As you may recall, the proposal is for approximately 96.5 acres, the northeast corner of Centennial Road and State Road 32. The petition encompasses a change of zoning request to permit the future development of school facilities and sports fields. The petition had a public hearing at the February 6th APC meeting and received a favorable recommendation at its March 6th meeting. The petition is up for adoption consideration tonight. Matt Skelton of Church Hiddle and Antrim is here today to present updated details of the project. We are both available for questions. Thanks.
Good evening, members of the council. For the record, Matt Skelton with Church Hiddle and Antrim with offices at 116 North Union Street here in town. With me this evening is Assistant Superintendent Brian Tomelmichael with Westfield, Washington Schools. This item, as Lauren pointed out, was last before you in December 12th. We've been to the Plan Commission, received a unanimous favorable recommendation. We're returning to you for your adoption consideration. There's really 2 points to highlight changes since we were last before you. There have been some pictures incorporated into the PUD that demonstrate the quality of architecture to be used on the site. And secondly, there's some language that has been incorporated into the PUD that specifically relates to lighting and making it clear that the Westfield lighting standards apply to this institutional use. The ordinance is a little ambiguous. The UDO is a little ambiguous the way it's written, so it's been clarified in this PUD. And then I think one of the Councilman Gilbert mentioned about the other email that some or all of you may have received from the Hamilton County Airport Authority, and I wasn't even planning to talk about it. They acknowledge right at the beginning of letter that we are comfortably outside of the area of concern for them. And the schools, as you all know, are very present in the community and probably have a better appreciation for the environmental conditions of our community than almost any other agency other than maybe the city. So it's not like they're naive and unaware that where the airport is and what it is and what it does. So with that, I'll conclude my remarks, and if there's any questions, I'm happy to respond.
Counselor, questions?
I don't have a question, I just have a comment. Love the design, certainly supportive of the project. My only concern, and I'm voting for this, but my only concern is this is going really far west that our comprehensive plan does not address. And I know we've already been pinged by a developer to develop the land to the west or east of that with residential. So I think the city's gonna have to really think this through long-term. What does this mean to growth for our city? I mean, how much further west do we want residential to go? But this certainly invites that type of development, and we haven't addressed it. So we're gonna have to do that here in the near future. And that's all I have to say about it.
Yeah, it's difficult to find a 90-plus acre site with good road access that isn't developed.
And I'll give the schools kudos, because I imagine it's probably cheaper here than if we found other locations in the city. So I understand why we're doing it. Again, it's just something we need to think about moving forward.
So this is probably getting out ahead of things, but I'm going to just go ahead and mention again, conceptually, seems like probably a pretty good place for it, probably a pretty good location. But as we move forward with this, we need to understand that really this is one of the very, very few places left where there's a somewhat rural lifestyle left in the city of Westfield. So lighting is going to be a concern and things of that nature. Without, we want to have as minimal impact as possible as far as lighting up the sky at night and that type of thing. So.
And the city's ordinance is actually very restrictive, and if those standards apply in this situation with modern technology, it's much easier to control light. And you probably have seen plenty of examples, even within Westfield now, but some of the directional LED applications are very easy to control that.
I'm personally pretty excited to see this project and the school being located where it is here. I think we all need to keep in mind and remember that this specific piece of land had been rezoned in the past many years ago, and it was zoned for retail and high-density homes. So my way of thinking, the idea of putting the school there is really an improvement to what we could have sitting there. So, and realizing that we are a growing community, we need schools. I'm delighted to see the Westfield Washington schools taking this step forward. So, just my thoughts. Any other comments, councilors? Do I have a motion then with respect to ordinance 22-62 Westfield Washington PUD?
I move that we approve ordinance 22-62 Westfield Washington PUD.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Gilbert, seconded by Councilor Edwards. Cindy, would you please call the roll?
Scott Fry,
Yes.
Joe Edwards,
Yes.
Scott Willis,
Yes.
Mike Johns,
Yes.
Cindy Spalgeri,
Yes.
Jake Gilbert.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Next item then will be our only item of new business this evening. And this is ordinance 23-02, Urban Apples PUD amendment. This item will have a council introduction tonight and an APC public hearing on April 3rd. I'm not sure what will follow that. It looks like we should have another APC following that, but I'm not sure what the progress, or if we've decided when that will take place. I don't think our agenda is correct on that one, so.
I will have to check my notes on that.
Okay. But needless to say, why don't we go ahead and have our council introduction this evening.
Perfect.
And Lauren, I'll turn it over to you.
Excellent, thank you. So, Lauren Gillingham, Community Development. So the item before you this evening is the introduction of Urban Apples PUD Amendment 1, I guess. As you recall, when the Urban Apples PUD was approved in late 2021, it included deadlines for the completion of building improvements and the installation of landscaping across Spring Mill Road and elsewhere on the site. Due to delays in installing the water and sewer mains along Spring Mill Road, as well as various construction, material, and labor supply issues, the applicant is unable to meet these deadlines and requests an extension. Matt Skelton of Church, Hiddle, and Antrim is here tonight to speak on the project. Thank you.
Good evening, members of the council. Again, Matt Skelton with Church, Hiddle, and Antrim, here on behalf of Urban Apples LLC. With me this evening is owner Noah Herron. The Urban Apples was last before you in about a year ago, actually, and and as Lauren pointed out, there were several timelines established in the PUD. The largest project on the property, the Vine Building rehabilitation here, it is actually completed. So it was due to be completed by this time, and the exterior, it has been completed. Work continues on the inside. There are 3 items in the PUD that are being proposed to be modified, and I'll just go through them very briefly, but specifically, as Lauren pointed out, the area along Spring Mill Road here, there's a fairly exacting and very precise landscaping plan, fencing plan, entry feature plan to be installed along that area. This property, there's water and sewer main extensions that are going to be coming up Spring Mill Road, and we are somewhat dependent upon Somerset, which is the project to the south of this property, to help facilitate those extensions. They are going to be installing some of the extension work here along Spring Mill Road, and until that happens, to put the landscaping and fencing in could be somewhat wasteful. I mean, there is going to be some construction work going on all the way along here. We expected that to be done already over the cold months, and it will be done, we expect, this year. But in the proposal before you, we've allowed until up to June 1st of next year, just in case there's other delays. We don't have a firm deadline on when they plan to finish extending this water sewer extension here. But those improvements, the fencing, landscaping, and entry feature will be installed immediately following that. Also, there's some design work going on with the city. There's an entrance to Somerset here and the entrance here, and there may end up being a consistent passing turn lane installed here, and that's going to affect the entrance design as well. So that, for those reasons, we just need a little bit more time prior to installing the aesthetic improvements along the street. Secondly, there's some orchard plantings that are planned in this area. This proposal before you would push that deadline to the same date, June 1 of next year. We expect that these will be planted, and they're actually required to be planted by April of this year, and that's just not going to happen. There's mounding and landscaping that is going to be installed along here by Somerset and Arbor. You may recall this, but as part of their proposal, they will be building a mound and landscaping in an easement along this south part of this property. And the machinery that needs to get in there and do that work would need to access in this area here. So we're just requesting a little bit of a delay. We won't have them in the ground this spring for sure, and it doesn't make sense to plant those in the fall, so it would be a spring planting. And then lastly, the cidery building here and the music shelter here. The proposal before you would set a deadline of June 1st of 2026 for the completion of those. There's just, the reason for that delay is that there really has been kind of a domino effect of some of these other things that I've talked about that have pushed those improvements out a little ways. In addition to that, I mean, there is some engineering work that needs to happen regarding the site. This pond needs to be created, and this mounding needs to be installed. And really all the site work and parking areas need to be completed prior to that work being initiated, plus installation of the improvements along Spring Mill Road and installation of the orchard. And then there's architecture, permitting, all of those things before work can even really start on those things. So just to be safe, we've pushed the date to June 1st of 2026. And if it can happen sooner, it will happen. So that's a brief summary, but I'm happy to respond to any questions that you may have. And we look forward to working with the Planning Commission as we go through the process.
Thank you, Matt. Councilors, any questions? Hearing no questions, then I guess, Matt, we look forward to seeing this at the APC.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item would be residents who might wish to speak before the council this evening. Kevin, do we have any cards? No, we don't? Okay. Clerk treasurer comments this evening?
I do not.
No, okay. City council comments? Start with Cindy Spolgeri.
We did have our last planning commission meeting last week, and the only item that we discussed was the Westfield Washington Schools PUD. And what we didn't talk about here tonight is there were some questions related to things like access onto 32. We didn't talk about that here, but that is not, of course, our jurisdiction. And so I think eventually probably seek a write-in, write-out. I don't know if that's going to happen, but wasn't necessary for the project to occur. So that's all.
Thank you. Any other council comments?
I'd make note that we're going to have a finance committee meeting in April. We've got to look at the schedule, coordinate schedules, and make that happen, but that's going to take place in April.
All right, great, okay. Any other comments?
Just, you know, a lot of people have talked about the news about Grand Park. You know, transparency here is that, obviously I said, was hoping we wouldn't sell it. I'm glad that we're not. Hope going forward, just the whole city, RDC, council, mayor, we can all be looped in on the same page moving forward for whatever we do going forward, so we can get some economic development around Grand Park and fully utilize it. This past week, you know, I saw the video that was put on that we had 3.5 million visitors last year, which was 500,000 more than we had the year before, and I thought that was spectacular. You know, obviously very unique assets, hard to know what to do sometimes when you're the only one that has something, there's nothing to compare it to. So I'm happy that we're keeping it. Mr. Mayor, and I do ask going forward, just as we complete the rest of the RFP process, just as much as we can be looped in on the RDC members who some say they don't know all the details, council members who some say we're waiting for details, and the mayor, that we can all work together on that the best we can to make Grand Park really serve the city the best it possibly can. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Gilbert. Any other comments, councilors? Hearing none. Mr. Mayor. Well, then we will end our meeting this evening at 8:25. Thank you.